Today, we're talking about a truly monumental figure in Islamic history, a man some have called the proof of Islam, Al-Ghazali.
But here's the thing about him. His life is this incredible paradox. How does a man known for being an arrogant, unbeatable genius completely transform into a humble, revered saint?
I mean, this is the story of a man who, right at the peak of his power, literally lost his ability to speak, only to find the true heart of his faith.
So, to really get this transformation, you first have to understand just how much of a superstar this guy was. Let's start with his first chapter, the arrogant genius.
Even his own teacher described him as a vast ocean of knowledge. He was famous for being so brilliant, so sharp in any debate, that he just never lost an argument, ever.
And his rise to the top, it was absolutely meteoric. He was born into a poor family in Persia, but his genius was clear from day one. By the time he was 34, an age where most scholars are, just getting started, he was made the head professor at the Nizamiya of Baghdad. We're talking about the Harvard or Oxford of its day, the most prestigious university in the entire Islamic world.
And the way he worked was just something else. He'd dive into a totally new field, master it completely in his spare time, and then he'd write the book on it, the one that became the new gold standard. He did this with logic, with theology, and most famously with philosophy, where he first explained it better than the philosophers themselves, and then systematically took it apart in this brilliant critique.
So on the outside, everything looked perfect, right? Unbelievable success. But internally, a massive storm was brewing. He was heading straight for a crisis of the soul.
So you've got to picture the world he was living in. It was kind of torn between two extremes. On one side, you had the rationalists who felt the human intellect was the ultimate judge of everything, including religion. On the other side, the traditionalists who relied on very literal readings of scripture with not much room for reason. And Al-Ghazali, he was right there in the middle, trying to build a bridge.
So you have this huge intellectual war going on outside, but a much more personal one was starting inside him. And it begs the question, right? What happens when that one tool you've relied on your whole life, your powerful intellect, just isn't enough to save you?
And this all led to this just terrifying moment of clarity for him. He looked at his life and realized, I am not practicing what I'm preaching. All that arrogance, that love for fame that had fueled his success, he started to see it as a path straight to damnation. He felt like a total hypocrite. How could he stand up and teach people about purifying their hearts when he knew his own was so deeply impure?
And then came the breaking point, and wow, was it dramatic. Picture this, at the absolute peak of his fame, he walks into his lecture hall, which is packed with hundreds of the smartest people in the world. He opens his mouth to teach, and nothing comes out. Not a single word. The most eloquent man of his age was struck completely mute by his own spiritual crisis. This complete breakdown forced him to make the most radical decision of his life. He decided to leave it all behind and embark on what would become a 10-year journey.
Yeah, that's right, 10 years, a whole decade. He just vanished from the world stage completely. And he gave up everything. His top job, all his money, his celebrity status, gone. He just wandered the Muslim world as a total nobody. At one point, this intellectual giant was literally working as a janitor, sweeping the floors of the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, all while his own books were probably being taught in its classrooms. And it was right there, in that state of anonymity and intense inner struggle, that he wrote his masterpiece, The Revival of the Religious Sciences. It didn't come from a fancy university office, it came from the battlefield of his own soul.
So, after all that, what did he come back with? He returned with this incredibly powerful new way of understanding ourselves, a framework he called ruling your inner kingdom.
Okay, so here's how he broke it down. He said, the self is like a kingdom with 4 key players. The heart, that's the king, the one who's ultimately in charge. The intellect is the wise minister, the advisor, who's supposed to perceive reality correctly. Then you've got desire, which is like the governor, always trying to gather up supplies and provisions. And finally, anger is the police force, in charge of defense and security.
And this is such a powerful question for us even today. Take a look at your own inner kingdom. Who's really running the show? Is your wise minister, your intellect, advising the king? Or have the police and the governor, your anger and your desires, staged a coup and taken over?
He even took this idea a step further.
He said that every single one of us has these four natures warring inside us. There's the ruminant, which is all about our basic animal needs like eating and sleeping. There's the predator, which is driven by aggression and anger. You've got the demon, the part that plots and deceives. And then there's the angel, the part of us that seeks knowledge, mercy, and a connection to something higher.
And all of this leads to his final and maybe his most important piece of wisdom, this beautiful idea of polishing the heart's mirror. Now, for Al-Ghazali, when he talks about the heart, he's not talking about the physical organ beating in your chest. Not at all. For him, the heart is a spiritual mirror. It's the very seat of our consciousness. And its whole job, its entire purpose, is to reflect reality for what it truly is.
And here's the kicker. Our actions directly affect this mirror. He said that bad character and bad deeds, they're like smoke and grime that cloud up the mirror, distorting how we see everything. But good character, good deeds, they're like light and polish, cleaning that mirror so we can finally see things with real clarity and truth.
And in the end, all of this work, this really hard internal work of ruling your kingdom and polishing your mirror, it's all for one ultimate purpose. As he puts it so powerfully, no one has salvation unless they come to Allah with a sound heart.
And that really leaves us with one final, deeply personal question to think about. A question his entire life journey really forces us to ask ourselves, what's clouding your mirror?